You probably think you resist change because it's inconvenient, annoying, or badly rolled out, but that's not the real story. When something shifts at work, your nervous system runs a threat assessment before your conscious mind ever even weighs in. Today, you'll learn the biological and psychological reasons change feels harder than it should, plus specific tools to move through it without spiraling, stalling, or sabotaging yourself. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Workplace Therapy with me, Dr. Abby Metcalf. And today's topic comes through my Substack community. Somebody was asking about change at work and that kind of thing. And I thought, what a great topic to run with. So, and if you've ever silently thought, why am I making this such a big deal when your workplace rolls out a new system or process? You are definitely in good company. And as from someone who did a lot of change management in companies and does, I can tell you this is a really common thing. You tell yourself maybe that you're being dramatic or resistant or bad with change. And you likely judge yourself for not getting on board faster, or you judge others for this. This might be just people or someone who works for you or that kind of thing. But I want to be clear. You're not resisting change because you are lazy or difficult, and neither is your coworker, okay? You're resisting because your brain is wired to prefer what it already knows. Familiar feels safe, while the unknown feels very risky to your brain. The second something changes, your nervous system kicks in long before your logical brain has a chance to give a, thoughtful, reasoned opinion. The research shows that uncertainty increases activity in the amygdala. I talk about the amygdala a lot. That's the threat detector in your brain. And it temporarily reduces engagement in your prefrontal cortex, another area of the brain I talk about a lot, which is the part of the brain that does planning, problem solving, emotional regulation. So, when change hits, you literally have less access to your best thinking for a little bit. And that's not a character flaw, that's biology, and that's for everybody. So when you understand what's actually happening inside you, I think the whole story shifts. You stop treating your resistance like a moral failing, and start seeing it as a nervous system response that you can work with. Okay, so why does change feel so threatening to your brain? I'm assuming, is the next question you're asking. And your brain has one main job: keep you alive. And it does that by constantly predicting what's coming next, so it can prepare. So when life is predictable, your brain relaxes. It's like, okay, I know what's happening. When life isn't predictable, your brain acts like it's standing in the middle of a dark alley holding a broken flashlight. I mean, it gets very upset. Uncertainty is a stressor. When something changes, your brain suddenly can't predict outcomes as well. It can't do it. And that lack of prediction is what lights up your internal alarm system, which might make sense. And I did, on my Relationships Made Easy podcast, I did an entire episode on dealing with uncertainty. And I will link to that. And whenever I talk about the research or anything else, or the free download today is amazing. All of that can be found below the video if you're watching on YouTube, or over on the website below where you find this episode blog. Okay. So at work, this can look like, anything really, a new software system that makes you feel slow and clumsy. That just came up with a client, a reorg where you're not sure who you report to anymore or where your place is in the org chart anymore, a new boss with a different communication style that can set this off, a quote unquote small process change that breaks, your comfortable routines. So even if the change is positive, that part doesn't matter. Your brain still has to recalibrate. And in that recalibration period, your nervous system is more activated. So you probably will notice things like feeling tense or irritable or unreasonably annoyed. You might notice procrastinating on learning the new thing. Hello. Uh, numb scrolling, doom scrolling or distraction. Whenever you try to engage with the change, you might notice you suddenly want to or even go run and have a snack, that kind of thing. You might notice some catastrophic thoughts like, if I can't figure this out quickly, I'll get fired or something. And that early resistance, it's not about the change being good or bad. It's about your brain losing the illusion, and it is an illusion of certainty, and trying to get it back as fast as possible. That's really what it's about. So let's talk about the real reasons you resist change. To me, what I find is that there are three big emotional drivers underneath most change resistance. And once you see them clearly, I hopefully can stop beating yourself up and start addressing what's actually going on, and maybe stop, again, beating up your coworker or your subordinate. But the first thing is definitely this fear of losing competence. Before the change, you know what you're doing. You feel capable, you feel efficient, maybe even respected for your expertise. And then something shifts and suddenly you're slower, you're confused, and maybe you're even asking basic questions, right? Competence is a huge part of psychological safety, especially at work. So when you feel capable, you feel safer taking risks, speaking up, engaging. And when your competence takes a hit, even temporarily, your nervous system reads that as a threat. So you might catch yourself avoiding the new system because you don't want to, look stupid, I guess. You might find yourself clinging to old processes that feel easier. I see that the most, I would say. You might dismiss the change as pointless instead of admitting you're uncomfortable not knowing yet. I see that a lot when there's change. So, you're not just protecting your time, you're protecting your, your identity as a competent person. So that's why this gets in the way. The second thing I see is fear of losing control. And that's not just me, the control enthusiast. That seems to be everybody. Humans have a strong need for autonomy. You might want to feel like you have some say in how you work. And when changes are kind of handed down without your input, your nervous system reacts to the loss of choice, not just the content of the change. And I have to tell you, the research is very clear that having even a small sense of control reduces those stress responses. When change feels forced, your resistance is it's like your nervous system is trying to claw back some sense of control. That's what's happening. So that could sound like maybe you're saying, hey, no one asked my opinion. Why should I care about this? You might be thinking or saying, well, they're changing everything all the time. I can't keep up, kind of dismissing it. What I see a lot are people saying something to the effect of, well, I'll do this in my way and pretend I'm following the new process, even though I'm not. And underneath those thoughts is a nervous system saying, I don't feel like I have a say here, and that feels dangerous. And so I'm resisting this quite a bit. And then the third thing I see is this, really this, I don't want to say this fear of losing your sense of belonging. Change always affects, like maybe almost always, I'm going to say always, almost always, change affects relationships, right? New boss, new team, new expectations, new norms, whatever the thing is. Your brain is wired to treat belonging as a survival need, okay? We are social creatures on purpose. That's how we've survived and thrived. When your social environment shifts, your nervous system pays attention. The research on belonging, and there's a ton of it, and it's quite robust, shows that social rejection, or what we call exclusion, activates the same brain regions that process physical pain. I've talked about this before. Yeah, you're not being dramatic. When a reorg or leadership change makes you feel exposed, anxious, unsure of where you stand, and again, your nervous system is having a major reaction to this. So it could show up as things like worrying that the new boss won't like your style, feeling left out if you're not part of the change planning, reading every email for hidden signs that your role is at risk. I see this a lot. On the surface, you might be saying something like, oh, I hate change. But underneath, it's really because you're afraid of losing competence, control, or connection. Though sometimes all three, obviously, but even one of those. Okay. So that's the problem. What do we do? So there are 6 healthy things you can do to move through change. Okay. That's what I want to, what can you do? We talked about what you can't do. What can you do? And again, you can't stop change, but you can change how your nervous system and brain respond to it. And so these are 6 practical, research-backed, as always, strategies. And again, I want to be clear. I use things with my clients because I take them from the research. I then apply it in my work. I see what works and what doesn't, what seems to be obviously not everything works everywhere, but what works most of the time for most people. And that's what I talk about. So it's not like I'm brilliant and I sit there and think of these great things. I take it from the part of my brilliance is that I know to look at what more brilliant minds than me have done and are doing, and I apply it and see what works and what doesn't. So number 1 is name exactly what's getting triggered. So instead of I hate this change, try this change is hitting my sense of competence, or I feel like I'm losing control here. When you label that internal experience, you move the reaction out of that pure emotional circuitry and into the parts of your brain that can think, that can plan, that can regulate. Basically, you're getting out of the amygdala and into the prefrontal cortex. Again, it's from the research that simple naming starts to calm your system down. So you might literally say to yourself, of course I'm resisting. I feel less competent right now. Or yeah, sure, I'm frustrated. I don't feel like I have a say. Or, I'm anxious. Hello, I'm not sure how this is going to affect my relationships at work. Okay. Or my job or whatever. You're not indulging the thoughts or feelings. I want to be clear. You're accurately naming them so you can work with them. That's what this is. All right. Second, number 2 is to make the change predictable in small ways. So remember what I said earlier. Your brain relaxes when it can predict, even a little bit. So take the change and try to break it into a few small, clear steps. When change management is done well at any organization, it does it this way for you, but sometimes it doesn't, or sometimes you need to break it down even smaller for yourself. So for example, you might say, on Tuesday, I'll watch the training video. On Wednesday, I'll practice the new system for 20 minutes. By Friday, I'll try it on one low stakes task, right? See that? Broke it down. You're giving your brain a short, simple roadmap so it can stop acting like everything is unknown and dangerous and scary and terrifying. And if your boss or the organization you work for hasn't already done this, broken it down, when I'm working with someone, I tell them, all right, you break it down, bring it to your boss and go, listen, there's a lot of change. There's a lot happening. I know we're supposed to start all this tomorrow, but here's what I'm going to do with it because it's too much for me to do all at once. And I want to make this stick. I need to get on board and I want to make changes that really last, and trying to do 50 different things in one day is not going to work for me. And, we're going to end up with a lot of trouble. So I want to do it this way. And I'm telling you, in my experience, those managers, some of them resist. They're occasionally, but almost every time, they're grateful that someone has figured it out and is showing them a roadmap. Or I hate to say this, but they would have done that themselves if they knew what you know. Do you know what I mean? Like if they were listening to this, they would do it themselves. And if they haven't done it, broken it down, then you kind of presenting it and showing that you're on board, but you're just slowing down the process is really going to help. I'm telling you, this is what I do. I've seen it. Number 3, the third one, is to reclaim a sense of control. So I want you to ask yourself, what's still mine to control here? And maybe you can choose something like when in the day you practice the new process, who you ask to be maybe your learning buddy, how you set up your workspace to support the change, what questions you prepare for your manager, right? These are all things, even small, genuine choices matter. The research shows that, again, perceived control buffers the impact of stress on that prefrontal cortex of yours, which means you get more of your clear thinking brain back online, which is really what we're trying to do, right? Okay. Number 4, my 4th tip is to normalize the learning curve. So instead of shaming yourself, okay, try to normalize it. You would never expect someone else to master a complex system in a day, but I see you and you hold yourself to that standard all the time. I see it constantly with my clients. I'm like, are you kidding me? So you need to remind yourself, there's always a competence dip with change. It's normal. It's normal. My favorite, I'm not bad at this. I'm new at this. You got to do the reframe. I beg of you. I had a client recently that I had put that as their wallpaper on their phone. I'm not bad at this. I'm new at this. Seriously. I've learned new things before. My brain knows how to do this. I know how to learn. So this can happen, right? When you normalize the dip, you remove the I'm failing story that you're telling yourself, which makes your resistance worse. You're less likely to avoid the change or numb out or withdraw or whatever, because it feels, when you do it the other way, it feels like some sort of referendum on your worth instead of like, oh, this is normal and not, like this is okay. Obviously, this also comes in self-compassion research, but it's effective. Doing this is really effective. All right. Number 5 is to stay connected instead of isolating. This is really important. When you're stressed, it's very tempting to pull back, to hide, to pretend you're fine while you're silently drowning because you think you're supposed to. And the problem is that isolation increases nervous system activation and makes everything feel more threatening. So instead, try, you can tell a trusted coworker, hey, this new system is stressing me the F out more than I expected. Can we walk through it together? What do you think? Something? I don't know. Asking your manager, can you help me prioritize what parts of this change matter most this week or today? Try saying in a meeting, hey, I'm on board and I need some clarity on how this affects these 3 tasks I'm responsible for. Something like that. Always start with the, hey, I'm on board. I'm change is hard, but I'm here. And, not but, and how does this affect A, B, and C that I normally do, right? Get very specific. You're not being needy, you're regulating. It's important. Social support literally calms your brain's threat response. That's why that's so important. So make it happen somehow, some way with somebody. And don't just use ChatGPT. That's not social support. It'll maybe give you some answers to how you might deal with this, but you still have to deal with the people. Okay. Number 6 is to anchor the change to your values. Change is easier to handle when it connects to who you want to be, not just what your company wants you to do. Okay. So you're going to ask yourself something like, how does adapting to this change support the kind of professional I want to be? Right. I'm working with someone who's making large scale changes in a emergency room, like a whole emergency room system in multiple hospitals. And I've told them that they should talk to the people who are resisting the change in this way. Like, everyone, nurses, EMT, everybody who's involved want to help people. They're trying to help people. So when you take it out of, right, what kind of professional do I want to be? When you put it in that instead of like, this is overwhelming to me, it really helps. How could this change make my work more aligned with my values, even in a small way? Asking that. If I handled this change in a way I'd be proud of a year from now, what would that look like? That's a really good one I have people ask. When you line up change with your values, that's when you're creating internal motivation instead of relying on fear or pressure. So if you're a manager listening to this, you want to do this to the people that work for you. It makes your nervous system feel more grounded, and it really gives you a reason to keep going when it's feeling super uncomfortable. Okay. So let's wrap up. you don't resist change because you're broken, I guess I want to say, or stubborn or bad with change or whatever you've told yourself. You resist because your brain is wired to protect you from uncertainty, and change is uncertainty on steroids, right? Once you see that fear of losing competence, control, or belonging is what's really driving your reaction, that's when I think you get your power back, which is why I try to explain this stuff. You're no longer stuck in this sort of vague dread. You can talk to yourself more reasonably. Oh, this is what's happening. Then use specific tools to steady yourself, right? So, how to put today's lesson into action? Today's free download is your Change Resistance Decoder. It's a 5-minute tool to understand what's really going on. And let me tell you, so here's what you're going to get in it. You'll get a quick self-check with questions that reveal whether competence, control, or belonging is getting hit the hardest for you personally. You'll get a breakdown of each barrier and how it tends to show up in your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And then 3 kind of simple scripts for asking for clarity or support at work without sounding needy. You also are going to get a micro action plan that you can fill out in under 2 minutes, by the way, to move through the current change. Okay. All of that. These are basically what I did was I took things that when agencies hire me to do this stuff, I took everything and kind of put it into a shorter version for you so that you can make this happen. So you can download again below the video. You can go to the website, abbymetcalf.com. All the research, all the links to everything else, and the link to the free download are sitting there. And that's it for this week. I hope this helped you get a better handle on this. And, please share it with people who are having trouble with change at work. Or if you're going through a big change at work, you can use this as a quick training to help people move forward. All right. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you real soon.